sorry. I know you expect something more profound from me. You know what? It's not fitting for us to see the king's dishonored. Oh, we would not want, oh, come on, you gotta be kidding. Therefore, we sent and informed the king of, let's move on. But you know, we can see through this. We can see what they're doing. They're not fooling anybody. And opposition in our own day, we can see when this kind of thing is happening. They don't care about the king. They care about their opposition to God's people. Whether they recognize it, whether they know why they do or not, they care about taking God's people down. And they'll stoop to kissing up and tattletaling to make that happen. Verse 15, so that a search may be made in the record books of your fathers, and you will discover in the record books and learn that city is a rebellious city and damaging to kings and provinces, and that they have incited revolt within the past days, and therefore the city was laid waste. Okay, now, it's making some illogical leaps here. The main one of which, it is selectively reporting some of what, the next one there. It is selectively reporting some truths of what has happened in the past. Yes, there were rebellious kings. Those kings, though, were not rebelling against the Babylonian kings or the Persian kings. Ultimately, those kings of Judah were rebelling against God. It was not their rebellion against Babylonian kings, against Nebuchadnezzar, that is not why they were destroyed. It was the rebellion against God. God can protect them from the Babylonian and Assyrian and Persian kings. They were taken down because of their attitude, their wrong-headed understanding of God, their sin toward God. And then he says, past days, meaning, this might have happened recently. Well, this happened, over a century by the time they're talking about it here. And therefore the city was laid waste. So it makes some kind of illogical leaps. It dredges up some selected details from the past and assumes those things to be true in the present. And I was going through this morning, it made me think about something. And I just wrote this down in my Bible. They allow no room for spiritual growth. When I went to my first year of Bible school, and I was in an Old Testament survey course, and I guess I'd never heard this before, I never put this together before, but this was astounding for me. One of the problems Israel always had was idolatry. After they get back from the Babylonian captivity, there's no more idolatry among God's people. That has been taken care of. That right there shows tremendous spiritual growth among God's people. And you know what? Again, God is faithful. He said, listen, if you continue to revere and worship false gods, I will take you out of your land. And when he did so, the prophet said, wow, you did exactly what you said you would do. You did exactly what we deserved. In fact, if anything, you dealt with us with more mercy than you needed to have. But eventually there was judgment. But these people who are criticizing them allow no room for spiritual growth, legitimate spiritual growth that had indeed taken place among God's people. And it got me thinking too about when we were studying through Colossians at the end, and Paul was talking about Mark, and how Paul and Barnabas, they split over Mark because Mark had deserted them, and now it looks like Mark had come back, and Barnabas takes Mark, and Paul goes his own separate way. I think he takes Silas. Well, by the end, Paul has come to accept Mark as, despite his past failures, he has come to recognize the spiritual growth that has taken place in Mark, and has come to accept him as a colleague, and then speak very highly of him several times throughout his epistles. We've got to allow room for spiritual growth, both in ourselves and in those around us. So they take this illogical leap. What has happened in the past is going to happen in the future, and they kind of use selective history to prove that. And then I think the funniest thing that they do is in verse 16. They make this fanciful assumptions. We inform, verse 16, we inform the king that if the city is rebuilt and the walls finished, As a result, you will have no possession in the province beyond the river. Okay. Okay, yeah, so they rebuild their society, and they are going to take over all of Israel. This whole territory is going to be taken over by these people. This is the kind of thing that really scares kings, by the way. They say, ooh, yeah, you got a good point there. Let's put some facts on this assumption. The first one is, they say the society, if the Jewish society is rebuilt, they will take control over the entire region. And when they mean across the Jordan, they are referring to from Babylon's perspective, so they're referring to the whole area on the west side of the Jordan. So you have to figure out where you are when you talk about the Transjordan or across the river. They're talking about the entire region on the east side of the Jordan, or essentially the Promised Land. They're going to take over the entire region. Let me interrupt this conversation with some facts. We remember about 42,000 people came back in the first return. The time period here is probably before the other two returns, so maybe 78 years later, maybe the community has swelled from 42,000 to maybe, 70,000, 80,000? Maybe. Let's say they're about 80,000. They're going to amass an army large enough to take over the entire region. And if you only have 70 or 80,000 people, you may only have 10 to 15,000 fighting men at best. Let me compare that with a couple other figures. The Assyrian king Sennacherib, his army in 2 Kings 1935. 2 Kings 1935. You remember how many people there were in his army that came over and took the land, took the entire region?
186,000.
185,000 fighting men. That's more than the entire population of the Jews in the land at the time of the post-historic time. Not to mention trying to muster enough people to make a fighting force and take over the entire region. So 10,000-15,000 fighting people relative to the Assyrian king's 185,000 people. That's how much it took Assyria to take over this land. And were it not for the angel of the Lord dealing with these people, they probably would have taken over Jerusalem from a human perspective. One more point of comparison. 1 Chronicles 21:5. Joab reported on the number of fighting men to David. In all Israel there were 1,100,000 fighting men. That was what David needed to expand the kingdom and to sustain his reign over the areas of Israel and in the Transjordan. 1.1 million people. And these guys are complaining, boy, they might have 10,000 people, maybe 15,000 people are going to take over the entire area. Not likely. Not likely by a long shot. So it's ridiculous. It's fanciful. And I think the original people seeing this would have recognized that better than we do. But comparing those numbers, we see, yeah, they're just being completely ridiculous. They're completely out of league with what they're saying. This said, again, kings get kind of twitchy when you throw these kind of thoughts at them. And in verse 18 and 19, actually back to verse 17, then the king sent an answer to Rehum the commander and Shimshai the scribe and to the rest of their colleagues who live in Samaria and the rest of the provinces beyond the river, peace. And now, verse 18, the document which you have sent has been translated and read by me, before me. Verse 19, a decree has been issued by me and a search has been made, and it has been discovered that the city has risen up against the kings in the past days, that rebellion and revolt have been perpetrated in it. Okay, so the king is agreeing with this, and this is historical fact. Okay, that's what has happened. So he's echoing this sentiment, and I think Ezra might be sending the people a message, and that is hard to shake free from your reputation of the past. They were seen by Babylonian and Persian kings as a rebellious city, and now as the Jews are trying to rebuild their city, just for the purpose of worshiping God, some of their mistakes from the past are going to be dredged up and thrown against them. This happens. Okay, this happens in the Christian community. We've got to be careful what we do, because the errors of our future might become the negative errors of our past. They may become the reputations that we would rather have avoided in the future. Xerxes acknowledges the former power and glory of Israel in verse 20. He says, "And the mighty kingdom and mighty kings have ruled over Jerusalem, governing all the provinces beyond the river, and that tribute, custom, and toll were paid to them." And then verse 21, so he acknowledges the grandeur of the former kingdom of Israel and Judah. Verse 21, "So now issue a decree to make these men stop work, that the city may not be rebuilt until a decree is issued by me." And verse 22, "Beware of being negligent in this manner, in carrying out this matter. Why should damage increase to the detriment of the kings?" What does he care about? He only cares about himself. Well, we don't want this to hurt the king after all, do we? Right? Tattletales and kiss-ups? No, sir, we don't want that to happen. That's the last thing we want to happen. What do they care about? They only care about themselves. The opposition only cares about themselves and their opposition, and they are appealing to the selfish motives of the monarchs as well. Verse 23, then as soon as the copy of King Artaxerxes' document was read before Rehum and Shimshai, the scribe, and their colleagues, they went in haste to Jerusalem to the Jews and stopped them by force of arms. So the work that was going on during that time period was stopped because of what was going on here. Now in verse 24, Ezra's going to pick up the story that he began in verses 1 through 5, and we really hope for a different outcome, don't we? We don't get a different outcome. Then the work on the house of God in Jerusalem ceased, and was stopped until the second year of the reign of Darius the king of Persia. In chapter 5, chapter 6 next week, we'll talk about this, how this work got going again. But let's look at the score here. In Ezra chapter 4, we have 4 examples of significant, protracted opposition. We don't really know what happened in 2 of those cases. In the 2 others, we do know what happened. Opposition was successful. God's work was stopped. God's people buckled. And after all the wonderful things that God has allowed to happen to the believing community in chapters 1 through 3 of Ezra, in chapter 4, you have all this opposition, a history of persistent opposition, and because of that, they stop. And Ezra is trying to communicate, as he will in the next 2 chapters, that opposition should not stop the Lord's work. The Lord is greater than any opposition we will face in this world. And as it turns out, the Lord uses the prophets, uses the leaders to continue to encourage the people to do what they were supposed to do, and when they do that, they can overcome the opposition. So the story that started at the beginning, it ends on this negative note. That work on the temple stopped, just like hundreds of years later, decades later, work on the construction of Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the walls would stop. The whole theology here related to the stories is that there will be persistent opposition, that God's people often cave to that opposition. And I think Ezra was trying to tell the people of his day, don't be like that. Opposition doesn't mean stop. Opposition means continue in the strength and the will of the Lord. And when you do that, you will find success despite the opposition. So let me do this. I got about 10 minutes left, and I just kind of wanted to have a little bit of fun with this, if you can call opposition fun. I want to back up. I want to back out of the text a little bit and look at the whole thing. And I give you a couple of notes about this, about the theology of opposition. And I want to give you these verses, and I want to give you the chance to look up some of these verses on your own and see if I'm right in my assessment of a broader theology of opposition. But Ezra is using history to make a theological point, namely that God's people will face opposition and hostility. This is the same point